now we've had a good amount of time for our glue to dry in here. So now what we're going to do is make our next few steps. So what you need to do is actually, on your back line of 3.5 inches, you want to come back another about 1/2 inch now. And I'm sure you're asking, like, well, why didn't I cut it before? And that's just to make sure that this part is leveled out first. So just do it the same way. Just take a little knife and make your incision about 1/2 inch back, and then carefully take your Phillips screwdriver and just widen that section up. And then what this is going to do is this is going to allow for adequate movement of this. Now, it doesn't seem like much, but the hinge process that we're going to be working on now, that little bit is all it's really going to take to move your stuff. I mean, take a look. I just barely moved that, maybe 1/2 inch, and that's what we get. So it's not going to take much at all to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our bow here. And if you use thicker stuff, you're only going to need one of these. But if you use a little thinner, what I've used, you're going to need 2 of these. My other one, it's a little thicker, balsa wood, and so I only needed 1 of them. And the reason why you're going to need 2 of them is because usually these screws that come with the hinges are just a little bit longer, and even 2 of them, you'll have that tip pointing out of your wood, and you could catch part of your clothing, you can catch someone else's clothing, their costume. You don't want that. You scratch your arm, and so this is more for precautionary measures. So the first thing to do is we are going to combine it. I've already have one made to this step, and this is where the little toothpick or matchstick, if it's a thicker wood, comes into play, just to hold it together so they're not flying around, not flimsy, anything like that. And again, this is where the 2 3-inch pieces comes in. That way the screw can be driven through and not poke out the sides. So as you can see, this end here, this part touches, but this part is a little bit more spaced. And so what we will do is we'll start with 1 piece, and we want one about 1 inch in. So make a little mark there, and then one maybe about halfway. You kind of be the judge of where you want to put it. If you feel like you want to do more, you can do more. I recommend at least 2, one at the end, one in the middle, and then you have the glued end part, which is going to secure that corner. I find 3 is just perfectly fine. And then you're going to need a small drill or a very fine screwdriver. I mean, even this one is too big for this particular wood. So I have my tiniest little drill. It's a 1/16 of a size drill. Be careful, you don't want to accidentally drill out your sides or poke out your sides, so you want to take extra precaution when dealing with this piece. Also, a toothpick will be too long in this sense. So what I've done is I've cut the toothpick right in half at an angle, and that's going to give me that sharp point that will help penetrate into my wood. Now use the shorter end on the middle section, like that, and then of course your bigger end on the bigger section. You just want to kind of just get a good feel of where it's going to be at, and then try to best align this as it's, you know, make it look almost like a natural bow, and just use that little point to push in there and make a mark. If you can ease your little stick in there, that's great. If not, just push it to make a mark and then re-drill that end. This one's a little thinner, so I just have mine to make a mark. And I always make the middle one, the one I just did, more deep than I do this one. And whatever you do, your first one, you want to be somewhat similar in distance to your other one. Not too many people are going to notice, but if you're more particular, like I am, I try to get mine to fairly match up. So once that is established, what you're going to want to do is just take just a tiny little drop of glue. Way too much on that one. Just a tiny little drop of glue. And that way when you stick the stick in, the glue will help hold it in place. So that's our first real step of this. The next one is you want these to be close together. Take your little 3-inch strip that we cut earlier. Line the glue because it's a little hot, hence the name, hot glue. Okay. So now, the spacing between here is at 3 inches, and it's a 3-inch height. And so, even with this 3 inches, I mean, it's still, you know, it squeezes in there and it pushes up on this. That we don't want. So this one I have slightly trimmed it. It needs to be trimmed just a little bit more. And with that, once your glue settles, you just want to just barely trim it in. So that way it slides in a lot easier. You want it to be in there, move around without really catching on anything. And as you can see, I mean, this end of the bow is a little bit wider than what this end of the bow is. That's okay. If it's something you don't like, you want it more symmetrical, go ahead and just keep trimming this edge off, the outer edge, until you get your desired width. That's plenty. You got a pretty fair amount of room. What is that? That's 2 5/8. So if I were to be precise as I would this other one, see the middle's fairly even along there. This, however, is slightly off. A lot of my designs, once I get to this point, where it's the outerness, I love it to be more precise, more precision to it, more symmetrical, in other words. All around. So next what we're going to do, now that those are pretty much the same now, is to attach the little tiny brackets. I was lucky that I found one. This one came in a set of 4 hinges. So that makes it a little easier to do things instead of buying more. So make sure that they're in the right position. They open up this way, and when they close, they're all the way down like that. And you want them pretty much just right along the middle line of this. And so I will mark it and add just a little drop of glue. And again, the glue is there because I mean this is very thin wood and may have a tendency to strip out over use. So I add the glue in there so as the screws thread down, it pulls that hot glue down there and ties everything in. To avoid failure. See, if you don't work fast enough with the tiny glue, it dries up on you. If you don't want to take the time to do this, that's alright too. It's just a fail-safe. That's all it is. And then the next one on the next spot. So there we go. Another step down. Now if you're using the glue, make sure to double check your hinges, let them break any of the glue that might have got in between them. Now you get to be your own judge. If you're looking at this, how do you want them? You know, which one's going to look more like a bottom end, which one's going to be more like a top end. Yeah. So I like that a little bit better. You be the own judge of how you're going to do it. So this first line at 2.5 inches that we marked, that is exactly where the center hinge pin is going to be resting. I don't know if you can see that, maybe not, because this camera's quite a bit of ways. But, so that's where we are going to position this, is right there. Once that's in a good position, hold it pretty well and give yourself your marks. So again, now that we're here, it's time to add the little tiny screws to this section. And it may be a little difficult, Alright, well, my batteries in my camera decided to die. I didn't realize it until I went to stop. So what you've missed, because I've already did it thinking my camera was still working, I attached the screws like you did. Since I was using this smaller, a thinner piece of balsa wood, I actually cut out 2 more of the 3-inch pieces and put a secondary one here on the outside. Now for the nails, the drywall nails or the drywall screws, whichever is easiest to get a hold of, something that has a cap so it won't slide off and could be fitted between the wood here. I used drywall screws because I was all out of the nails, and screwed this in on all 4 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4. The problem with the screws is that the screw part goes pretty much all the way to the very top, and so when you go to shift this to engage the bow to open or close, the screw part grabs this top part and it shifts the whole thing and it doesn't operate effectively. So let me take one of these out just to kind of show what I did. In order to compensate for that little tiny grab, I actually took, and you can take a little screwdriver or you can take a drill, whichever is easiest, that's a little wider than the screw, just the top piece here. And then that way, this section of the wood is wider than this and it won't grab. And the screw part here will hold it in. Now if you're using nails, I recommend adding the hot glue there and then pushing the nail in. If you got scrabber screws like these, the screws should hold in place, but if you want to be more cautious about it, you're more than welcome to add glue there. That's perfectly fine. So that gives it a little leeway, a little free movement that you can see there. It's very subtle, but it's there. Also what I did is these pieces, I mean, that's a bad example, there it is, that was sticking out, I kind of just cut a little edge off there, because I mean you don't want this little piece sticking out there, or maybe you do, I mean I don't know why, but I did. So I just kind of went around and cut each one of those. So then what you do is you hold on firmly to this nice and tight, because you got the whole box that's still shifting from the lids, and go ahead and just test it. And all you gotta do is pull and close a few times, and as you can see, it works just fine. So once that's the case, then what you're going to want to do is glue all of this down really fast. So hopefully your glue gun is hot, hopefully you've got a big enough stick, because you want to pump that all in once, push it down, and hold it there until the glue sets. Now I've already done the bottom one, so now I'm just going to quickly do the top one. And the hard part really is done. The only thing that's really going to be left for us is to work on the rest of the body frame and coverings, coatings, paint, stains, all that kind of fun good stuff. Now obviously, you know, the glue there isn't really holding much because there's nothing there, but you don't know until you actually close it. So I clean up the edges, make this nice and good, and then I just run this corner right here, and if the crack is small enough, it'll push the glue right there. Now for these ones where we cut, I'll go back over again. That side's now dried up, cooling. So I've done, like I said, I've done this side, and just as an added precautionary, I'll go back and I will actually refill this crack here with just a little bit more glue, help hold it in place for the constant opening and closing and movement of the bow itself. Now prettiness isn't going to really matter here if you're starting to concern yourself with that, because this is all going to get covered. This is just to add added support to this. So, there you have it. Still a little warm. But there is our beginning mechanics of our bow. Don't recommend playing with it until it's completely dry. Unless you like playing with glue. So there it is. That's the beginning stages. That's the finished product of the big problem that a lot of people have, is how to make the mechanics simple, easy, inexpensive, and still wow your audience. So coming up next time, we'll be working on this section here. Oddly enough, this piece is actually just about as difficult as this was for me to first figure it out, but now I look at it, it's a lot easier to do, and so we'll be working on these two sections, combining them all, and then adding on the outer covering thirdly, and the final touches afterwards. And then of course this very last. We'll still take it one step at a time. We'll work on this piece next. So thanks again for watching. You didn't really miss too much except for me messing up in a few places, and I'm kind of glad it got cut out naturally. Otherwise I was going to cut it out myself, because I did have a few problems doing this. But still, I hope your project is coming along just as well or even better. And we will see you next time when I have this next video.